Now, if you don't think this is retarded, then you must have literal brains yourself. Seattle courthouse drowning in waste. But cleaning it up would be racist? Yep, you heard right. Cleaning up crap off the streets is somehow racist.
Dang.
In a weird way, I had to sort of just free myself up to believe that it was okay to be stupid or dumb.
To be a moron. Yeah.
First of all, thank you, Halsey, for sending me this article. I know you're going to be covering it tomorrow, but since I'm probably not going to be there, I'm going to do my rant here anyway. And since this is my hometown, I used to live there at least, this will be a rather spirited rant for me because the happiest place on earth just isn't so happy anymore. But let's just go through the article here. So, when two Seattle, Washington judges asked the local authorities to clean up garbage and human waste from the homeless camp outside their courthouse, one council member worried that power washing sidewalks might be racist. Yeah, before I go any further, just remember this. Even before the homeless problem got really bad in Seattle, there have been homeless people sleeping and camping out in front of the courthouse for years. So yeah, none of this is really new. Okay, the article continues saying, the King County Courthouse in downtown Seattle is located near the social service centers and several homeless shelters. A tent city has sprung up in the little park outside. Now, it's always been there. It didn't just spring up, it's always been there. Anyway, moving on. There have been several assaults on courthouse employees and even 2 attacks on jurors in May and June, leading citizens summoned for jury duty to voice their concerns about their safety. So the 2 judges, Laura Enveen and Jim Rogers, backed by the King County Sheriff John Urquhart, whatever his name is pronounced, asked the county to do something about it, in the Seattle Times reported last month. I repeat, last month. And among those requests was a daily power wash of the sidewalks which reek of urine and excrement. Ugh. Alright, and here comes the excuse. Council member Larry Gossett, however, objected because power washing, quote unquote, brought back images of the use of hoses against civil rights activists, according to the Times.
The dumbest motherfucker that ever lived.
Now, this is the most retarded thing for so many reasons. Now, it's been 60 years since any black person has been sprayed with fire hoses back in the 60s. Even at that, most of us weren't sprayed with fire hoses. How are you going to be reminded of something that didn't happen to you? Anyone who survived the 60s protests in Birmingham, they'd have to be at least 80 years old. How many 80-something-year-old people do you see sleeping on the streets in Seattle? None? Yeah, that's what I thought. And second, wouldn't that just make hoses of any kind racist? Because, you know, black people were sprayed with hoses back in the 60s. Yeah, that's right. We need to start banning hoses, start banning pressure washers, because you know how we're so offended about it. It's not like you just go to the home improvement store and then see some garden hoses just in the aisle somewhere, and then some black person just freaks out and gets offended like, oh no, a garden hose! Ree! Yeah, get the out of here, you lily white snowflake. And this tweet on the article says, Seattle is trying to figure out how to clean poop off their streets, but a Democrat councilman doesn't like the idea of using pressure washer hoses because it reminds him, keyword him, not them, of hoses used against civil rights activists. You can't make this up. It's insane. Cities have been using pressure washers to clean their streets for years, and no one has ever complained that it was racist. This is just an excuse not to do your job. Alright, I'm going to skip down to the last 2 paragraphs. It says, Timpf was not the only one in that sentiment, as the legions of social media users had a field day with this councilman's claim. Would using water hoses to put out fires be racist? Or trying to tie a boat to a dock with a noose? Since it involves making a noose, you know, is that racist too? Make sure you don't use brooms either, because you might be offensive to witches, you know? Last paragraph. This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, one commenter wrote on Twitter, and they all wonder how Trump was re-elected, added another. Alright, now if this keeps up, I can tell you exactly what is going to happen to downtown Seattle. And how do we know this? Because it's already happened in San Francisco. Remember when they banned plastic bags? As a result, homeless people stopped crapping in the bags because they didn't have any, and they either crapped in their tents or crapped outside. And what else happened? There was a hepatitis outbreak. That's right. When you start having open defecation and urination in the streets, that's what happens. Outbreaks, disease. Has anyone forgotten the plagues in Europe that happened because of this? At least back then they didn't know any better. Oh, and let's not forget about India, which has the biggest open defecation problem in the world. Ganges River, anybody? You see, these liberal idiots, they think they're helping the homeless, but they're really not. By just leaving urine and feces on the streets because it's racist to pressure hose it off. That just makes it worse for everybody, even the homeless people. That's just going to make them get sick too. And then that's going to eat up more of our tax dollars. The average taxpayer that actually has a job and actually works for a living is going to have to pay for that. But you know what? This isn't really to anybody's surprise here, because for starters, Seattle spends roughly $1 billion a year on the homeless. And spending all that money doesn't make things better, it actually just makes things worse. Because when word gets out that a city is giving away free gibbs for the homeless, what's going to happen? You're going to have all the bums across the country trying to move there, especially when the benefits are good. No, I'm sorry, scratch that. When they're enticing. You've got bums coming from as far as Reno, Nevada. Yeah, that's right, Reno, Nevada. Reno, Nevada is one of the biggest white trash states I can think of. Some of the most pathetic white trash on the planet. That's right, my white nationalist friends, they do exist. You know what else they come to Seattle for? The drugs. Because, you know, safe injection sites.
Hey, but Shogun, all the poor addicts out there, they gotta find some place to safely do their drugs. You gotta have a little sympathy for those guys who are stuck on heroin.
Oh yeah? Well, I wish you'd have sympathy for the children that have to step over those broken needles. They did the same thing in San Francisco, and the needles are everywhere. They had to hire 100 or 1,000 something people just so they could pick them all up. Now, I agree the war on drugs is stupid, but this is just as stupid. You want to know what else is stupid about Seattle's government right now? The cops can't do their jobs. That's right. The cops will get prosecuted sometimes when they do their jobs because, you know, racism and victimhood and so on. There was this black homeless guy who raped and killed this old lady and repeatedly raped her before killing her too. What happened? He didn't even spend a night in jail. I mean, well, he was booked in jail, but then they had to release him soon afterwards because, you know, racism. And because stuff like that keeps happening, good cops leave the police force and they don't come back. And they wonder how come they can't find good cops anymore.
It was almost like I had to sort of fool my mind into believing that it wasn't retarded.
But I digress. You see, this is a result of what people voted for as well as what people refuse to vote against. A city's government is just a reflection of the people, as well as what they're willing to tolerate. Now, what would I do, or what would I want to do? I would love to just go straight up to that courtroom and just defecate right on the door, dress in all black in the middle of the night, do my business, and run on home. Better yet, I'd love to go to that politician's house and crap on his door. And if he tries to call the cops on me, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to call him a racist because, you know, police brutality. Cops are racist. Durr. And if you try to clean it up with your own hose, oh, that's racist too. Can't do that. So maybe you shouldn't be the one trying to determine what is racist, you regressive retard. By the way, I am black, for those of you that don't know. And I can determine for myself what is racist and what is not. But obviously they don't care, they're just trying to push a narrative. And it's the poor and the stupid that vote for Democrats anyway. And that is why they cater to them. That being said, it's a shame what the city has gone to. Because back in the 80s and the 90s, Seattle was the happiest place on earth. There was literally nowhere else in the United States that I would rather live. Now I don't recommend anyone come to move here. Even if it's for work, I do not recommend it. Now I got out of there while I could. It's gonna get worse. And that's the end of my rant. Shogun is done. See ya.
This serious? You don't know. Everybody knows you never go full retard.